Hello, everyone, and welcome to special episode number 12 of the Get Authentic with Marques show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden, and today we're joined by Jillian Haslam. She is a Mother Teresa Award recipient winner. Before we bring Jillian up to the stage, I want to thank a few of our amazing sponsors. Century 21 Connect Realty with Lee Valle, a realtor brand out of Atlanta, Georgia. Nationwide Exteriors, a roofing brand out of Orlando, Florida. Deflect Tech LLC, a shoulder protection device brand out of Colorado. Bill Kiefer and Associates, a consulting brand out of Ohio. Big L Speaking, a speaking brand out of New Jersey. And a Must Win Financial Literacy, helping athletes with marketing, branding, and going fishing in the nil space. Now, let's bring up to the stage our guest, Jillian Haslam. Jillian, how you doing today?
Very well, Marques. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I was more than delighted to be invited, and I couldn't believe it actually when you reached out to me. So thank you.
Jillian, thank you so much for coming on our show. You have an amazing story. But before we get to that story, Jillian, what does the word authentic/authenticity mean to Jillian Haslam?
Well, for me, Marques, it's twofold. For me, I think authenticity is when you can be the real you and you can make everyone around you feel comfortable just by being you. And I think, secondly, the way I would position it is, or explain it, is that when the whole world wants you to be someone else and you refuse to be that someone else, but you just be yourself, the real you, that to me is authenticity.
When everybody in the world wants you to be someone else, but you are going to stay true to who you are and be the real you, that is authenticity to Jillian Haslam, and I agree, and I love it, and that's exactly why we started our show. And it's a special episode number 12. And again, this story is going to blow you away. Jillian, would you please share with our audience your story, where you're from, upbringing, all your work, your travels, and of course, how you became a Mother Teresa Award recipient winner?
Sure, Marques, great question. Well, from the time let me go back to my parents. So both my parents, I have British ancestry on both sides. My mother's actually got a mix of Scottish and Armenian, and my father, his parents are British on both ends. They were born in India, but their parents were born here in the UK, and they were born in India during the time of the British Raj. In 1947, India got her independence. They were given 1 year in which to leave the country. Hundreds of families chose to come back to the UK, including my dad's sister, and brought all her children and came back. But hundreds of families chose to stay back in India because they had great lives and, of course, the weather. And they thought everything is going to remain the same. But it didn't, unfortunately. And many families, I'll talk about mine in this instance, were reduced to absolutely nothing. So we were reduced to living under a flight of stairs. And before that, my mother took my little sister and myself from one person's house to the other. Sometimes we were allowed to stay on. Sometimes we were asked to move on. Sometimes they said they could feed us, and sometimes they refused. And eventually, a very kind gentleman offered my father a place, a little village school, which was hardly a village school. There's a picture of that in my book. It's two very tiny, broken down shacks, really, to open a school in a place called Dum Dum. But when we got there, and before that, my parents had lost two children to abject poverty and malnutrition, two girls, Carol and Minnie. And when my parents got to Dum Dum, this little place outside the city of Calcutta, my mother was pregnant with twins, a girl and a boy, Kimberly and Alan. And we lost both of them also before the ages of 6 months to abject poverty and malnutrition. But then things got worse, and there was a kidnap arranged for my elder sister, Donna, because she was blonde and blue-eyed and whatever. And the villagers said to my dad, if you send her back to Calcutta, the other two will be taken from you. That's myself and my little sister, Vanessa. So my parents basically had to take us by night, and we went over fields and fields and fields, and the villagers helped us, and we escaped from that place, pretty much like the one track family, only without any money or anything else. And we got back to the city of Calcutta, where my on the way back, my father almost lost his eyesight because he had a stroke on the train. It was too much for him. I think losing four children, one after the other, serving in the army, it all got too much. And anyway, my mother put him into the Salvation Army, which at that time was a place looking after ex-servicemen. And we went to stay under this flight of stairs, my little sister Vanessa and myself. And my mother put my sister Donna with a friend to stay. But we witnessed my mother being beaten. We witnessed very sad times. The place under the flight of stairs, the pictures in my book, only about 2 or 3 feet from us, people used to wash their clothes, wash their utensils, bathe their children. It was like a proper communal area. And my father got better after many months and came and took us to a proper place where we lived in a slum in this little room, 8 by 10 feet. And there was hardly any electricity, hardly any water. We filled water from a tube well. And to just give you a general idea of the slum, Marcus, approximately 3,000 people shared 3 toilets. And that's where we grew up. All of us have had tragic accidents, just like little children face today. We got up in the morning and we saw dead babies on dustbins. That's how we grew up. My little sister fell down a manhole and was just about saved by my dad. My other little sister got burnt on hot coals right up to her ribs. We were all very, very tiny, and we just had to make do with what we had. And my father had a job very far away, so he had to leave very early in the morning. My mother used to go out in search of food or whatever she could get. And on Fridays, the Sisters of Charity used to come to all the poor areas. One of the areas was ours. And they used to give away these packet of biscuits, a bag of powdered milk, and a packet of clothes if you were lucky. If you were lucky. And so Mother Teresa one day came there to check on all her branches and the work of the sisters were doing. And we were all in a queue. Sometimes you had to queue up for 6 hours and 8 hours at a time in order to just get something from them. And she just patted us on the cheek and said, next, 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 go along. That's the first time I ever met Mother Teresa. And we just took our bag of powdered milk and our clothes if we were lucky. And we used to come home, and in that bag of clothes were, these giant panties of ladies from America or UK or whatever who used to send those clothes back to Calcutta. But we used to put on those panties. They used to start at our waist and end at our ankles. But we used to tour around the whole area with those panties because we were so proud we had knickers after so long. And my father used to see us from work and say, get inside, you two. But that's how we grew up. We grew up with many lessons, abject poverty. We lost very many siblings. But that's really in just the story, Marcus.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, talk about a woman who has seen so much, that has endured so much poverty, so much death, so much disease, talking about people trying to kidnap her sister, to living underneath steps and all these things. And she was able to make it out of that situation. And she's now doing some amazing things in her career. And she's helping so many people get to a place of decency, get to a place of being able to provide for themselves the best way they can. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about the work you're doing today? And then how did you end up winning an award of what I would call the most prestigious woman of our era in Mother Teresa? Like, when you think about purity, you think about heavenly, you think about humanity, you think about just giving and caring. That's the first person. Matter of fact, when I do my speech, I talk about leadership are people that serve a cause greater than themselves. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa. Like, I say her name in many speeches because when I think of her, I think of humanitarian, leader, giver. And talk about how you end up winning an award for being a Mother Teresa award winning recipient.
Marcus, I have from a little girl, my mother anyway was highly charitable. She would take any man, woman, and child off the streets and bring them into this little room to stay with us. And we used to actually sleep in one line, back to back with each other because the room was so tiny and we were so many of us. But in that room, she used to keep birds and she used to keep cats. And my father used to call it Noah's Ark, really. But she just wanted to help everyone. She used to bring this man who used to look terrible off the street, and she would say he's staying with us, and we used to say, Mom, we are all girls, you can't just bring a strange man off the street and make him stay in this room with us. And she used to say, we'll ask your father when he comes home. And when my father used to come home, we used to say, Dad, please tell her she can't let this man stay. And my dad used to say, children should be seen and not heard, so your mother's word is final, he will stay. So my parents were highly charitable people. They would just help anyone. And when we used to have a bath, Marcus, in our little room, in our little veranda, my mother used to have to put a sheet over the plastic line so that the boys from the upstairs couldn't look at us having a bath because it was a very tiny little veranda. And sometimes when we used to be bathing, this man used to just enter. And I used to say, Mom, but I'm bathing. He can't just enter like that. And my mom used to say, when you become Elizabeth Taylor, then you let me know. Until then, move on. Right? He's seen everything. He's a great guy. He's not going to look at you. Come on, get a grip, get a grip. Just because he's poor, don't put him down. Come on, get a grip. My mother was like that. My parents were like that. They never, ever let us think negatively. They always twisted every single negative aspect in our lives into something positive, Marcus. And so for us, when I grew up, that's really what we saw. And I was determined that I would go away, help my family, and I would come back and I would make sure that I would take as many people and help as many people with me, with jobs, with their livelihoods. And that's why today the tagline I have is helping people from every generation. So when I got my first job at Bank of America, out of 250 girls, I got the job. And two or 3 weeks ago, I was doing an interview, just like I'm doing an interview with today, with the World Affairs Council. And they were so taken up with the story about Bank of America and how I got the job there and what I went through, that only today Bank of America have contacted me and invited me back to Charlotte for a very special event, just because of what I have gone through. But when I got the job at Bank of America, I worked really hard. And then I came here and I worked very hard here. And at Bank of America, I picked up many awards. But I was determined to go back because I truly believe, Marcus, that success is not just about getting through yourself, but it is about remembering to take others with you. That is true leadership. That's what I believe. And my parents, every day, when they used to kiss us at the door and say, we'll see you in the evening, we never had the internet, we never had a phone, we never had any means of contacting them. But my father always used to call us his little leaders. He used to say, you all are the elder ones, so you lead the little ones and you show them how strong you could be. Sometimes we used to be left with no money at all. And the poorest of the poor used to give us bad potatoes and tomatoes that we used to cut off and cook. The meat man used to keep dried bones for us. The milkman gave me the milk that saved my sister's life. And we used to come back sometimes, my little sister Vanessa and me used to come back covered in ash because we used to dig out their fires, take all the ash, throw it to the dustbin, and probably run from the tea shop to the dustbin like 40, 50 times to empty that big clay oven. But we used to come back covered in ash. And the two little ones, Neil and Susan, they used to look at us and be laughing. But we used to come back with our hands with, jalebis and samosas and whatever food the tea shop man had given us. And we used to always say to them, don't worry, we are fine. We are not hungry. You all eat it. Just like my mom used to do under the stairs when she used to bring back a carrier of 2 pieces of meat with some gravy and 1 little roti. She used to say, you all eat it because my friends have fed me too much. And we learned from her and we did just that. So for me, that's what leadership is all about. That's what success is all about.
Mm, mm, fantastic. So let me ask you this question. When it comes to the work you're doing today, right? You've been recognized for winning the award. You've done a lot of work with humanitarian. You've gone back to India. You've given back. You have really helped people of all ethnicities, all genders, all phases of life. Like you said, helping all the generations, right? What is it about helping people that gives you your most fulfillment in your work? Like a lot of times I feel people like you who are just natural born givers, it's something innate in them internally that lights their fire about helping as many people as they can. And I want you to tell us, because right now, Jillian, people that are listening to this episode, they may not even know, they might just need to hear your words. Like they may just need to hear what you've done and why you do it, because with the pandemic, with inflation, with COVID-19 still rearing its head, with people losing loved ones and all these different things, people I feel just need to hear positivity. And you're somebody that when I know your story, think of your work, it just screams positivity. So what is it that gives you the most fulfillment about helping others and why?
Marcus, great question. Thank you. What gives me the most fulfillment is a tremendous amount of inner satisfaction and fulfillment. And I say this because there is no greater joy, and there is no greater way to cry tears of happiness. When I wake up every single day at 4:30 in the morning, and I train the girls on Zoom in India. And we have beautician centers and schools. We have secretarial schools. We have English language schools for young girls who literally have no hope at all. We have little girls who are 12 years old and they work in three people's houses and they have cancer, but they have to work in three people's houses to pay for their own cancer treatment. We have little girls who, even in our little room when I was growing up, there's one little shelf where you keep all your precious belongings. And when they climb up on that shelf, their chimneys get caught in the fan and they die in front of their young siblings. There are little ones who have had the most terrible accidents and they have no hope at all. There are little ones who are basically from the ages of 6 months to big girls and big boys who are stuffed and live in one tiny little room with asbestos sheeting. There are little girls who are raped. There are little girls who are suffering with so many diseases. There are boys like that. And I feel great when I wake up in the morning at 4:30 and sometimes I haven't slept and I've got so much of my own work to do. But I wake up and I put Zoom on and I get these smiling faces of good morning, man, like that. And I feel, oh my God, everything is so worth it because I take them. Some girls come in there, Marcus, and they can't even lift their heads when they first come to the center. And then after a year, you have to see them. They are going out on my behalf to different little places and delivering speeches. They are speaking up for others. They are helping other girls. We then give them employment. We hire them as beauticians, as teachers, as trainers, as administration staff. And every time you ask them, what is it you want in your life? They'll say, man, just help my family. Just give my little child a chance. And when you give people that chance and you save a life, it is, I cannot describe the feeling to you, Marcus. It is unimaginable and it is so fulfilling that I would I would give anything up in my life to just go back there and live there because that is where I belong. I live here in the UK and I always say to people, I live here, but my heart and my soul is definitely there or with anywhere in the world where there are people poor and suffering. That is where I belong.
Jillian, you know, we, me, my producers, our listeners are so grateful that you took time to come on our show because you are the inspiration. Your story is the reason, the theme of our show, authenticity, Amazing people with amazing stories. And our show is fast paced growing. It really is. And we're so fortunate for that. But at the heart of the matter, why we started this was not for ratings, not for listeners. It was bringing people authentic, amazing, inspiring stories of people just like you. I have one final question. What is a famous Mother Teresa quote that you like to live by? I've seen so many, but I would love to know from you, what's a famous Mother Teresa quote that you live and embody your life after?
Well, I think, Marcus, she said, if you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know what you are and who you are. So continue to be humble for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Da Jillian Haslam, Mother Teresa Award recipient winner, amazing individual, amazing philanthropist. She's somebody that I truly have a ton of respect for. And let me tell you, the authentic tip of the day, always be humble, always be grateful. When you live your life in gratitude, nothing can touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you're confident in who you are. Again, this was special episode number 12 of the Get Authentic with Marques show with Jillian Haslam, an amazing woman with an amazing story and a heart of gold that is always trying to help and inspire others. Thank you, Jillian, for joining us. Amazing story. Again, episode number 12. This is Marques Ogden. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.